Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order with the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would, please stand. Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. For us the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, I'd like to have a moment of silence for a former friend, colleague, and council member, former council member Ed Taylor, so if you would. Thank you, everyone. All right, due to social distancing guidelines, there is limited seating in the council chambers. So we have set up an overflow area downstairs in the first floor lobby for the public to watch the live stream of the meeting on PAC 14. Once the audience chain in the council chambers are filled, the chairs that is, it's hard to read with my glasses, they keep getting fogged up. As one person leaves, another person can enter. Thank you for your patience as we go through this transition. All right, at this time, I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. It's a unanimous vote. Okay, at this time, we have a proclamation to the 2020 and 2021 Wicomico County Rising Star winner, Heather Smith from Wicomico High School. And she will be participating through Zoom, so if you would, Mr. McCain.
Need help, Bill?
I like manage. How are you, Heather?
She probably can't hear you very good because you're at a very far distance.
Said hi, Heather.
Hi!
I wish you could be here with us, but just a little history on the Rising Star Award. My wife and I, Teresa McCain and myself, a year ago we decided we wanted to do something for the educators in Wicomico County, and we thought about new teachers. And what we decided to do was, as part of the Teacher of the Year program, we wanted to recognize the new teachers in our county. When you're a new teacher, it's tough. It's hard. You know, you're doing everything for the first time. You know, I can see Heather nodding her head. You know, she knows what I'm talking about. And you know, we were hoping that, you know, recognizing a special teacher that's new to the profession, you know, hopefully they'll stay with us here in Wicomico County and continue that, you know, great passion they have for educating. You know, always remember it's teachers that make all other professions possible. So, you know, teachers are such a, you know, just special people, and we're so fortunate to have some really, really special teachers here in Wicomico County. You're going to hear quite a few names here even after I get done. So, Heather Smith was our winner of our Rising Star Award. Last year, our first recipient was Deborah Reynolds, and Deborah could not have been a better ambassador for us. You know, she did a wonderful job as our Rising Star Award recipient, and she was a great ambassador for the education profession. So Heather, I have a proclamation here that I want to read for you. The proclamation says, Heather Smith, the 2020-21 Wicomico County Rising Star Award. Whereas new teachers who successfully completed their first year in Wicomico schools and are now in their second year were eligible for the Rising Star Award. which was established to recognize and support teachers who are excelling in their first years in the profession. And whereas Miss Heather Smith, a special education teacher at Wicomico High School, was selected as the finalist for the Rising Star Award. And whereas, after submitting a video entry showcasing a great deal of professionalism, compassion for her students, and passion for her job, Miss Heather Smith was selected as the 2020-2021 Rising Star Award winner. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council congratulates Miss Heather Smith as the 2020-2021 Wicomico County Rising Star Award winner, done this second day of June 2020. Heather, congratulations.
Heather, would you like to say something?
So very much. I am just honored to have been recognized, and I started as an instructional assistant at Bennett Middle School quite some time ago. So to become a first-year teacher at 40 has just been a dream long in the making. So I am grateful for my job and just the students that I work with. I can't explain how much it means to me. So thank you for recognizing me as a rising star for Wicomico County. I will make you guys very, very proud.
And I'd like to share another comment too. I remember in your video, Heather, you had a saying, and your saying was "failing forward," and I remember
That's
that,
right.
and I love that saying.
It is, that's one thing that I will tell anyone, that we all make mistakes, and mistakes don't define us. What defines us is what we learn from them and how we take that mistake and reflect and we move forward. And as a special educator, trying to learn my first year of the paperwork and the PWNs and the IEPs and the wording, I felt like I was making mistakes all the time, but I promised myself I would never make the same mistake twice, and that I would take every failure and move forward. And that's what I did. So I was never ashamed of my mistakes. I just failed forward.
Well, I think that's a great message to leave us with. I think we all probably should just go home now after that message. And Heather, we have for you, we are going to get this to you. My wife and I want to present to you a $1,000 check. And we have that for you. I wish you were here because you would get it in your hand. And we also have for you, this is even more special, we have a bat. Oh, look, all the council members got nervous because they saw me show up to the meeting tonight with a bat. But the reason for this bat is donated by the Shorebirds. My good friend Chris Bitters over at the Shorebirds, the general manager, donates this. And this is a professional bat. But when you make it to the big leagues, you know when you make it to the big leagues because your name gets engraved on your own bats. So this bat has engraved on it, Heather Smith, Rising Star. So we will get you the bat, and we will get you your check as well. So congratulations again, Heather.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. And with that said, typically we would have made this presentation during the Teacher of the Year banquet. I think this is the first time in many years that we haven't had it and I haven't attended, but these teachers are still special and they mean a lot to us, so thank you. All right, at this time, we'll have proclamations for Wicomico County 2020 and 2021 Teacher of the Year finalists, starting with Josh Hastings.
Hello, everybody. Proud to announce this one for Chelsey Mangum. This is a Wicomico County Teacher of the Year finalist. I should also preface this by saying I'm very, very proud of my twin sister, who was a Teacher of the Year for Wicomico for Y-High. Did not make it to the end, but I'm very, very proud of my twin sister. So for Chelsey, I got to say, whereas teachers may fill many roles in the lives of children, and they teach the children they teach, and whereas long after the school days are over, and only the memories, teachers continue to influence us. Whereas Miss Chelsey Mangum, a pre-kindergarten teacher at Beaver Run Elementary School, was chosen amongst many outstanding educators to represent Beaver Run Elementary School as a 2021 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year semifinalist. Whereas 4 teachers from One from each school level are selected as finalists for the Wicomico County Teacher of the Year, and Ms. Mangum was chosen as a primary school finalist, whereas Ms. Mangum joins a distinguished group of Wicomico County educators who have been recognized for demonstrating outstanding leadership, dedication to education of our children, and professional achievement. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council recognizes and congratulates Ms. Chelsey Mangum as a 2021 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year finalist, done this second day of June 2020 and signed by the entire Wicomico County Council. So,
Thank you, Mr.
Joe.
Hastings. Is Ms. Magnum on Zoom?
I'm here.
Okay, good.
Chelsey,
like
this
to
is
say
coming
I
to
just
you.
wanted to say thank you so much, and I'm honored to represent all of the teachers of Wicomico County as well as the primary teachers in my school.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Okay, thank you, Josh. We don't have the teachers here, so we really don't have to go up to the podium, but that's okay. I'm not going to go to the podium. All right. This time, we have a proclamation for Miss Kelly Hamilton, the 2020-2021 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year finalist. Whereas teachers fill many roles in the lives of children they teach. And whereas long after school days are only memories, teachers continue to influence us. And whereas Miss Kelly Hamilton, a thinking and doing, also known as TAD, teacher at North Salisbury Elementary School, was chosen amongst many outstanding educators to represent North Salisbury Elementary as the 2020-2021 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year semifinalists. And whereas 4 teachers, one from each school level, are selected as finalists for the Wicomico County Teacher of the Year Award, and Ms. Hamilton was chosen as the intermediate school finalist. And whereas Ms. Hamilton joins a distinguished group of Wicomico County educators who have been recognized for demonstrating outstanding leadership, dedication to education of our children, and professional achievement. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council recognizes and congratulates Ms. Kelly Hamilton for the 2020-2021 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year finalist, done this second day of June 2020 and signed by the entire council. So, Ms. Hamilton, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Would you like to say something?
Of course. I always have something to say. I have to say, I have been so inspired by teachers during this whole pandemic. I've been so inspired by the things that all the teachers in Wicomico County have been doing for their students. It is evident that they have a genuine love for and a devotion to their students, and I have never been more proud to be called a teacher. So, and this means a lot to me, so thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. And this time, I have a proclamation for Mr. James McCrobie, the 2020-21 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year finalist. Whereas teachers fill many roles in the lives of children that they teach, whereas long after our school days are only memories, teachers continue to influence us. And whereas Mr. McCrobie, a social studies STEM teacher at Salisbury Middle School, was chosen amongst many outstanding educators to represent Salisbury Middle School as a 2020-2021 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year semifinalist. And whereas 4 teachers, one from each school level, are selected as finalists for the Wicomico County Teacher of the Year Award, and Mr. McCrobie was chosen as the middle school finalist. Whereas Mr. McCrobie joins a distinguished group of Wicomico County educators who have been recognized for demonstrating outstanding leadership, dedication to education of our children, and professional achievement. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council recognizes and congratulates Mr. James McCrobie as the 2020-2021 Wicomico County Teacher of the Year, done this second day of June 2020 and signed by the entire council. Mr. McCrobie.
Hello there.
There you are.
Thank you very much. I am completely honored to be the middle school recipient, and this is my 10th year in Wicomico County, and I couldn't imagine working in a better school system. I love my students and my colleagues that I work with each and every day. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I do want to make this disclaimer that Ms. Hamilton and Mr. McCrobie And they were both teachers of my kids, and they did an excellent job. And Mr. McCrobie, I want to say, I remember you being a finalist quite a few times, so maybe next year will be your year, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we have Miss Nicole Acle with the Teacher of the Year.
Is Hema?
She's going to come on. Go ahead and read it.
Hema, I have so much to say about her. She's just a wonderful person. I first met Miss Bhaskaran several years ago when my son started a new school.
Can you pull your mask down? It was muffled.
Okay. I first met Miss Hema Bhaskaran several years ago when my son started a new school. I knew no one, but was soon welcomed with open arms and a warm smile. As we became Destination Imagination parents, Hema would always share kind words to motivate the children in realizing their dream of getting to the national championship. Hema is a role model for parents and teachers who serve alongside her. Ms. Bhaskaran has a genuine concern and infectious optimism for her fellow teachers, students, and parents. As Mr. Cooper, a fellow science instructor, shared, no teacher is more dedicated or passionate for their craft, their educational content, or the success of their students than Ms. Bhaskaran. One student that Ms. Bhaskaran and I both know stated, Ms. Bhaskaran is very uplifting for all of her students. She has never yelled or gotten frustrated at anyone, and you can tell that she believes all of her students have potential to be great. She fosters a hardworking environment in her class and will match the effort you put in without being pushed. Wicomico County and James M. Bennett High School are indeed fortunate to have such a remarkable teacher, colleague, mentor, and friend. Within the ranks, thereas Ms. Hema Bhaskaran.
Thank you. Do we have her on?
I'm here.
There she is.
Thank you so much. It is truly an honor, and I'm so humbled to be Wicomico County Teacher of the Year. And I'm proud to be representing my home at the state level. And I assure you that I'll be making every effort to represent this great county in all its positive light at the state and hopefully at the national levels. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I'm so humbled and honored to be recognized as the Teacher of the Year. And thank you to the county and to the Board of Education, my colleagues, my students, for actually making me who I am as a person. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And who is the young man?
Aditya.
This is our son, Aditya. He's a product of Wicomico County. One of his favorite teachers is up there, so you wanted to see her on screen.
Well, I wanted to point him out because he's got a big smile and he looks proud of you, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, Ms. Hurley.
Okay, good evening, Mr. President, council members, ladies and gentlemen. The first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant Program. And we do have Mrs. Lori Carter here, Director of Planning, Zoning, and Community Development, and Mr. Jesse Drewer from the Wicomico County Planning and Zoning Department to answer any questions.
Okay. Do we have any public comments first? Yes, ma'am. Can you go to the podium?
I am Molly Hilligoss, Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity of Wicomico County. And our agency has applied to be a subrecipient of the Emergency CDBG CARES Act funding. We are in complete support of the county applying for this funding. Before COVID-19, there was already a housing crisis, with 40% of Wicomico citizens paying more than 35% of their income toward rent. Our application as subrecipient would serve 200 tenants with emergency rental assistance up to $1,200 per month. And the total request is $772,904. Just to put this into perspective, there's over 16,000 tenants in Wicomico County. I made some phone calls to some landlords that have quite a few properties, including G&I, Wisner Rentals. I spoke with Don Bibb from the Housing Authority, just to get a perspective on exactly how great the need is. And Wisner Rentals, he gave me a lot of detailed information, and he gave me permission to share that with you tonight. Last May, a year ago in May, his delinquencies were at 5% of his total portfolio, and this May, he's at 14% delinquency. Cumulatively, he's at 21% delinquency. And in terms of economic impact to the county, on any given month of the year, tenants are providing over $18 million worth of rental income to the economy. So right now, if we just use the statistics that I gathered, that's a loss of $3.4 million. So and that's just 1 month. So if you consider, over the course of the impact of COVID-19, the economic impact to the community is going to be enormous. So this grant application is critical to the success of so many low-income families that are just barely getting by. And I provided our application, our proposal to the council. I have 10 copies here if anyone's interested. We will be leveraging our existing construction and roof and repair program, as well as the AmeriCorps program, in order to execute this. We have a staff, including myself, of 22. We are fully capable. We'll pivot our volunteer program and the staff administering that to administer this program. And while we would have 2 years to complete it, I expect that we would complete it in 6 months, because that's how great the need is. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. Are there any more public comments? Any more public comments? All right, okay, go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Randy Morris. I'm a budding resident of Wicomico County. Mr. Dodd, Mr. Cannon, and Mr. McCain are my elected members of this council. I'm urging you to show your support of our rights by passing the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution.
Mr. Morris, it's not time for those public comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're talking about a community block grant. Are there any more comments from the public on this block grant? Ms. Carter?
I'll be doing it.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, council members, members of the public that are present or watching this evening. My name is Jesse Drewer. I am a planner in the Wicomico County Department of Planning and Zoning. I work specifically now on housing and community development, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and the census. Tonight, I'm here with Lori Carter, the director of our department, who, along with myself, will be overseeing the Community Development Block Grant CARES Act funding, should we get the council's approval this evening to proceed. The funding we are applying for is part of the $5 billion allotted to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as part of the CARES Act. This funding will be dispersed through the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, who will be awarding this through 3 funding rounds. The first of these funding rounds, Maryland has been allocated $4.4 million. This application will be for round 1 and will be submitted next Friday, June 12th, with the anticipation of funding awards by July 1. To evaluate the need here in Wicomico, we reached out to local agencies and organizations with a survey to gauge the effect of COVID-19 and what they would do should they be awarded funding through this grant. To be eligible for funding through the Community Development Block Grant, the uses must be in direct prevention, preparation or response to COVID-19, and fall into a category of use for low and moderate income people, to prevent or eliminate conditions of slum or blight, or to meet an urgent need. To meet an urgent need is the 3 subrecipients that we all have this evening that we will be presenting. We have 3 subrecipients interested in funding, represented in our application for round 1, totaling $1,977,361. This funding will be split between food assistance for Maintaining Active Citizens, MAC Inc., totaling $177,120, along with rental assistance programs for low and moderate income citizens through the Wicomico County Local Management Board, totaling $969,744, and Habitat for Humanity, Wicomico County, totaling $772,904. This is just for round 1 of this. We are still waiting for more information for the future funding rounds, and we look forward to coming back for the future rounds to present more assistance to the citizens of Wicomico County.
Okay, thank you. Are there any council comments?
Yes, I have one.
Ms. Acle?
Is this something that the local management board would typically get involved with?
Would this be something that they would typically get involved with?
Yeah.
It is my understanding that they do work with the population, that they do work with the population of persons that typically need some type of assistance. I understand that they have been doing some work with some other types of agencies. So, as it stands right now with these particular programs, it's pretty much open to anyone who is assisting low to moderate.
Okay.
Any more council comments? No? Ms. Hurley, why isn't this a voting item?
It's my understanding that this grant will come back before the county council once the grant award has been given to the planning and zoning department.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments? All right, that closes the public hearing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is resolution number 33, 2020, approving the capital program for Wicomico County for fiscal years 2021 through 2025. The document being presented for your consideration is the version that was submitted on April the 21st, 2020.
Okay. I need a motion to approve resolution number 33-2020 and a second.
So moved.
Got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion?
Yeah,
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I have some discussion on this.
Yes, sir.
I think it'd be helpful, just by way of background, to review what the capital program and the CIP is. It's a 5-year plan. It starts for next fiscal year, 21, and runs through 25, 4 more years out. It's a plan for the last 4 years. However, for this coming year, what is the plan, once it's adopted by council, becomes the capital budget for fiscal 2021. So essentially, by approving the CIP plan, you're essentially approving the capital budget at the same time. So that's one aspect that's worth considering. The other is that typically under these plans for this current year, when I say current year, I mean 21, I'm sorry, not this present year, the council cannot increase or any of the appropriations or add anything to it. It can decrease. However, there is one aspect of that that is unique, and that is for the Board of Education. The Board of Education each year submits a proposed capital budget. And if those items that they submit do not appear in the proposed plan that's presented by the county executive, the council can restore them. That's provided in the education article, of the Maryland Code. So what we have this year is a situation where there were 2 items in the proposed capital budget proposed by the board that did not get into the county executive's proposed plan. I'm talking about for FY21 now. I'm not talking about the 4 out years. There are two of them. One of them was a reduction. There is money in the plan for Beaver Run construction for what's ongoing now on site at Beaver Run. The proposal is $6,500,000. The request by the board was $7 million, so that was reduced by $500,000. The other item was completely deleted by the county executive, and that was for roof repair at, West Side Intermediate, I believe, school, and that's $281,000, and that was completely struck. Under the state code, those two items could be restored by the council, if that's your decision. So I point all that out by way of background. I see Dr. Hanlon's here. I know there was some question about Mardella, and at least in the capital budget that was proposed by the board, there is no funding for Mardella. So that is not an item that the county executive cut or deleted because it wasn't in that proposal by the board to begin with.
There was a request in FY21 for $2.5 million.
It's not in the documents I've seen. I mean, if that's the case, then, I mean, if you can show something, I went on and reviewed it pretty carefully, and I didn't see anything from Mardella.
Can we have them come forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the
Yes, please come to the table.
confusion there is that we've been looking at the proposed budget that the Board of Ed submitted, that's got the blue cover to it. And then the one that you emailed me late this afternoon is the actual capital improvement program that has a yellow cover to it, I believe.
Yeah, just for clarity, I'm not talking about the CIP document. I'm talking about the budget. Because under the code, it really only relates to the proposed budget. It doesn't, there's no involvement under the state code for the CIP. It's only items that were in the budget.
Okay, if you would, bring the mics closer to your face and give your names, please. Somebody might not recognize you with the mask on.
Donna Hanlon, Superintendent of Schools.
Lisa Ashby, Director of Planning and Construction for the Board of Ed.
Thank you, Ms. Ashby. And now you can comment on Mr.
Okay,
Taylor.
I'm gonna ask Mrs. Ashby to respond to that. I know it's in the CIP.
Correct. So in the capital improvement plan that was submitted for FY 2021, the top three priorities were Beaver Run. Grab it closer. Number one priority was Beaver Run for $7 million. Priority number two was Mardella for $2.5 million. And priority number three, and these are just the local requests, they're not the state requests. Priority number three was a roof replacement for West Side Intermediate for $281,000 for the local portion. Again, capital improvement plan, not operating budget.
Correct.
The only items that I've seen in the actual budget are the two that I mentioned. I understand in the CIP, it lists for Mardella, it indicates that there's been $291,000 previously appropriated, and that to do the entire school, the entire remaining appropriation would be $34 million and change. That would be the county portion, and would also be a state portion as well of 36 and change. But that is not in the budget. So I think we're limited by the education article as to what we can restore. And the only two items that I can see that we're clear on are the two I mentioned. The additional money for Beaver Run, $500,000 that was reduced by the county executive, and the $281,000 for the roof replacement at West Side Intermediate, which was completely deleted by the county executive.
So the budget perhaps you're referring to is the county executive's budget that was submitted, not our submission.
Well, it's in your online budget as well. I don't have it printed out, I don't think, but I think I've got the pages. I may actually have those.
I'm not sure that I understand the distinction between the capital improvement plan that we would have submitted that has the budget in it and a separate document that you're referring to.
Well, I can show you. I think I printed out pages of your budget here. Let me see if I've got them. No. You hand that to him. Yeah. This is out of the online budget on the board's website that indicates it was the adopted budget.
This is Jesse on the Zoom.
Is Jesse on the Zoom? Jesse Reed on the Zoom?
Jesse Green, are you on
Reed.
the Zoom?
Reed.
I'm here.
Reed, Jesse Reed.
Jesse
Yes, sir.
Reed is our comptroller.
Okay. Do you have a question for him?
So Jesse, what we have in front of us is, I believe is it page number you've written on the upper right-hand corner?
I believe they're PDF page numbers.
PDF page numbers, 173. The title is Wicomico County Board of Education Capital Projects Fund Proposed FY 2021 Financial Summary. Actual
Let me see.
proposed. It looks like this is a summary of the previous fiscal years, but I'm not going to
Look,
speak
there's
to
3
Jesse's.
pages there now. Look at the other pages.
Then there's 174, page 174, PDF. That's historical.
I see 7 million for Beaver Run, 281 for West Side Intermediate.
But Jesse, these are all summary, aren't they, from the previous fiscal years?
Yeah, that may have been, obviously we start this budget before we start the CIP process. It may have been before we knew exactly what we were putting forth with Mardella. I can check the most recent version. I'm pretty certain it probably has it in there.
Mr. Taylor, is this something that they can make an amendment to?
Well, I mean, I think we need to get it straight because, for example, the indication on the CIP for Mardella is 34 point, I believe that's $9 million. Now, that would be an awful lot of money to bond this year. And I don't think, I'm a little bit familiar with construction projects and particularly schools, and I don't think that would be all spent this year,
Well, you
even
would
if
be-
they
you
were
would be
good to
bonding that
go.
this
No,
year.
it was, the request was 2.5 million
For this year.
in FY '21.
But I haven't seen that number in any document.
That's what was submitted
it.
to the council. Our
Yeah.
capital improvement
This
document
here.
was submitted to the council.
This is the CIP that I have for them, and this is their priority list. There's Mardella, 2.5 million.
Well, this is a different list from what we were sent this afternoon. So, I mean, it's an oddity. I mean, this might be a reason to defer action tonight on this. And if you defer action tonight on this, then that means you're going to have to defer action on the entire budget, which frankly you might want to do for other reasons anyway. But that's, you know, we can only work with what we can find. And as I say, I haven't, until just now, seen any document with that on it, including the one that was sent over this afternoon.
So the way it starts is, there's multiple copies submitted to the county executive's office back in September.
I'm not arguing against this, incidentally.
Right.
And you have to remember, we have an awfully difficult time getting information from the county executive's office.
Well, I
You know,
believe
so-
Dr. Hanlon sent a link to our website, which is the official approved Board of Education Capital Improvement Program request for fiscal year '21. And that's the
This
document we pulled
afternoon,
up
this
today.
afternoon, when there was some question about why Mardella wasn't in that same category.
So, Dr. Hanlon, could it be that the first document that you sent to us, it was before the board approved it, but you were just kind of giving us a highlight of what was going to be in it, and then we got the board approved?
I'm still not sure, Miss, exactly what document you're referring to, if it's this.
This is a summary of previous fiscal years up through, for example, FY '20. I think Jesse just puts this in here as historical reference. I don't want to speak for him.
I think if the Board of Education is here, we should take their advice on what they say they put forth and move forward with that recommendation.
Did everybody understand that?
So with Mr. Cannon, so with that, are we saying in the, so I want to make sure we're talking about the CIP, the plan, and the, we're separating that from the budget, because this is the CIP plan, the
Well,
resolution, which
it-
I know
it's-
is going to dovetail into the budget.
Yeah, it is, but I think what we're all talking about, all three of these projects, would be the board's request for FY 2021. Now, it would go into the CIP, but it would go in for, as restored items for FY 2021, under the state code provision that allows the council to do that.
So essentially, we could restore the Beaver Run dollars of, which would be 7 million?
Well, it would be 500,000 because the executive indicated and included 6.5 million. So the difference between 7 and 6.5 would be $500,000 on that project.
Could we take one project at a time? The Beaver Run is the first one noted in what I've been following for the last week or so. And I would have a question for you, Mr. Taylor, on that. The amount allotted is I had 6.413, correct? Everybody keeps saying 6.5.
Yeah, I made that same mistake. There's a
Okay.
second line
It's
in
6 the 80,000?
well, for another, 80,000
yeah,
and
okay.
change,
All right.
which brings it to 6.5.
Okay, so if it's 6.5, that's been allotted for, and you're suggesting it be 7 even, correct?
That would bring it up to what the board has requested for that project.
Can we make that request as a council and request that it be new money?
Yes, you can.
Even though the original 6.419 was dedicated as old money?
There's an issue, I didn't
I
want to get...
understand it was never
Yeah.
bonded.
I didn't want to get into the complexity of it tonight. We've already got enough complexity floating around here.
Okay,
but-
I'll go with your first answer. You
Yeah.
said we could do 7 million new money, right?
Well, when you bring it up to 7, I think we ought to leave alone for right now the way the county executive has designated the source of funds. He's designated the 6.4 million as being essentially old money from old bond issuances. He's indicated the 80,000 as being new money that you'd go to the bond market with.
But they would have to...
Well, let me finish. Having said that, there's another problem, and that is that in this year's budget, as appropriated in the plan, I'm talking about this year now, not next year, there was a $7 million request to be funded with new bond money. That hasn't happened, so that money doesn't exist. The county does not have it because no bonds were issued. And how that money's going to be paid, and I understand Dr. Hanlon has expressed some concern about this, and I understand the concern, is if that old bond money, that 6.4 million, is going to be used to cover most of what was to be appropriated and obtained by bonds this year, then it's not going to be available for next year, because there's a simple rule: you can't spend money twice. And so there's an issue, and as I said, I didn't want to compound it, but there's a potential problem there, and I don't know how the executive branch proposes to solve that, because they haven't told us.
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah.
Thank you. Wouldn't the council be obligated to delete the 6.4 million because there is no, that old money does not exist?
Well...
Oh, God, it does technically exist, yeah, because it's from the board, said savings that the Board of Education had on prior projects. It's the residual bond money. Okay. All right, I would like to make the 7 million total be designated as new money. And that's okay to do that?
I don't know that you can't do it, I'll put it that way. I mean, it's not something that I had thought about for tonight, because as I said, this issue with this $6.4 million, more or less, of what we've been given to understand is left over from other projects. I don't know where that stands. I don't know whether it's been spent. I don't know whether it exists. I mean, we've heard different comments by Mr. Strasburg, but I haven't seen anything.
The Board of Education's request for 7 million.
The 7 million was requested as bond money.
As new money?
Yes, sir.
So then the council could approve the new money, 7 million?
Yeah, I say I don't see any reason why you can't.
Well, I have a proposed amendment in front of me in the amount of $7 million.
But then I think, as Mr. Cannon has pointed out, he wants to provide that, would be doing two things. Would be upping the amount that he has indicated for next year by $500,000, and would be providing that the entire amount as upped to $7 million would be raised by new bond money, rather than what he's proposed, which is using these leftover bond funds.
Can we pose that question to Dr. Hanlon and Ms. Ashby to address, just to make sure? I mean, I think we're all saying we're trying to restore this money, but are these the right quote numbers that we should be talking about?
Under the approved FY20 CIP, it had listed $7 million for 20 and $7 million for 21. Granted, you submit every year. So you would now be talking about actually $14 million of new money if you were going to new money, because we haven't yet received the allocation for the $7 million that was approved in FY20. So from a cash flow perspective, or I believe the term you've used before is a draw schedule, is to keep the project on track. We were expecting to receive the $7 million this past December, because that's typically when the bond market has happened and funds have been available. We ended up getting a little bit more out of the state this year than we had anticipated, so we've been able to go a little bit further. We had communicated the cash flow to the executive's office early in the year after the guaranteed maximum price, and we revised it once we saw the proposed FY21 allocation of 6.5. We reviewed the cash flow in detail with the school building commission. Essentially, as long as we receive either 13.5 to 14 million between now and December of this year, this calendar year, we can keep the project on track. If not, we're going to have to start looking at a way that we slow it down and bring it to an intelligent stop until we can get those funds allocated.
Do we have any idea about the 6.4 million of excess money? Does that actually exist and can be spent?
I can't answer that question.
That is not our money. That is, I guess, in the hands of the county executive's office.
Now, we've communicated, Mr. Reed, myself, will have communicated with the county finance department with if projects were closed out and if they came in under budget, then those monies are available, I believe, for the county to reallocate as they see fit. We're just communicating to the county finance department that we no longer need to access those funds. The project was completed, it was under budget, or whatever the particular situation was. So as far as what that 6.4 million is composed of, I can't speak to that in detail. I can only speak to projects that have been closed out, and I don't have that list in front of me. But.
I mean, that is incidentally the number that came from the county executive's office in this proposed CIP. So I would think there's some legitimacy to it. Bear in mind, too, for everyone's information, that the capital budget can always be amended during the year. So if it would happen that there's a shortfall in that 6.4 million and it is not available, then that could be addressed, but before going to the bond market for the $7 million for this year. So maybe the proposal that Mr. Cannon made is the way right now to skin the cat.
So make an amendment to add to the current to the fiscal year 21-25, is it? Make an amendment to add to the line item for Beaver Run $7 million in new money, because that was the original request from the Board of Education.
I'll second that.
You have a motion and a second to restore $7 million to the Board of Ed. I believe that's Department 30 for fiscal 21.
And just for clarification, is that new bond money?
Yes.
That's what he said, new bond money.
And I just want to clarify, the board's not specifically requesting how the money is being provided for the project. I don't want you to think that we're specifically requesting where the source of the funds come. We're requesting the necessary funds to keep the project moving forward, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Although as a practical matter, I think that's about the only way you're going to be able to get the money. You're going to have to borrow it.
Mr. McCain?
I think we need to term that bond proceeds, parentheses, new money or other new debt.
Is everybody in agreement with that?
I got a question.
Mr. Cannon?
I'm not quite sure what the distinction is, but
explain to Mr.
I'll
Cannon?
accept it as a.
Well, I'm not sure either, but it just gives the broader gives a broader term, I mean, in
Fine.
case there's some kind of alternative means that they go about
How they're gonna
raising
spend the
that
money.
money.
Yeah, and I'll put my head in the noose on that one. The reason I used that language was because at one point, Mr. Strasburg had talked about, instead of doing a regular bond issuance up in New York with, whoever, Bear Stearns, I guess they're not around anymore, but just doing a private debt. You can go to a bank, you can find private lenders. There are other ways to borrow money, and the county can do it just like Joe Blow can do it.
Hey, Mr. Davis?
Question. This 6.4 million that you keep talking about, is this money from leftover projects from the board?
Again, I know there are projects that we had delivered under budget, so I'm sure there are funds associated in that 6.4 million that probably came. For example, Bennett Middle came in under budget, so there were residual funds related to that. West Salisbury Elementary came in under budget. There was money associated with that. So those were funds we never tapped to begin with.
And that is
those
shown
funds-
in the CIP as old money.
Where are those funds at right now?
With the county.
But the county executive?
County Finance Office.
County Finance Office. The Board of Ed pays payment applications up front, and then we seek reimbursement from the applicable funding source. So we're fronting the money on a monthly basis and then claiming reimbursement either from whatever funding source we're looking at. So it's essentially, it's not like $7 million gets deposited into a Board of Ed account. The Board of Ed is provided confirmation that they have the ability to tap the allocation amount.
So if you front this money ahead of time, how do you get it back? Are you sure you're gonna get it back, is what I'm asking?
From the bond money?
Yes, so I'm not the finance expert, I'm the architect, but we'll actually get I believe a bond number associated with a particular allocation or a PAYGO identification. Our finance department enters that into our business system. We know, for example, that we have not been able to do that with the FY20 $7 million allocation. So that goes in, and then we're able to obligate against it.
And I guess there's some confusion with that 6.4 million, that's old money, and wondering how you can access that without going through us.
Well, the 6.4 will still be in the CIP.
Yeah.
And that would make good the commitment that was originally made in December and February of this year.
So the 7 million will cover that?
And the 7 million will be in addition. The 6.4
Would be
was
in
the
addition.
commitment for 2020.
So it's almost 14 million, as she suggested earlier?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's 14.
Which is what was anticipated through the years 2020 and 2021 when the project was first started.
Any questions?
I might just add one other thing on that. We were also given to understand, you'll remember, I think the last meeting, you approved Lindsay Rader as special bond counsel. And I think part of the thinking for that, and we've been given to understand, is she would have to be available to handle any technical issues on that old bond money, of having it so that it could be used for Beaver Run, rather than for the projects for which it was originally borrowed.
Okay, Mr. Holloway, I seen you grab your mic.
I'm fine.
You're good. Okay, we got a motion and a second on the school board's #1 priority, Beaver Run, to restore 7 million for fiscal year 21. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye. Motion passes. A second on the table, we have a proposed amendment for the Board of Education for West Side Intermediate, a systematic renovation of the roof. Mr. Taylor already spoke about that, to restore $281,000 to the Board of Ed for fiscal year 21. You have a motion.
And I have also indicated there again that it would be bonded new money or other debt.
So moved.
Who made the motion?
Was this?
John made the motion.
Second.
You got a second by Mr. McCain. Any discussion?
So is that was approved by the state, West Side?
The state did not approve their allocation. However, the School Building Commission really wants us to figure out a way that we can get this to come to fruition, because we're falling behind on our roof asset management plan. So right now, we'll take every dollar we can possibly get and then see if we can't get other funds to bring that project to fruition, because it really needs to go ahead and get replaced, and we'd like to do that as a summer 2021 project.
Do you know why they didn't approve it? Do you know why they didn't approve it? Did they give you reasons?
In very
back, or-
generalized terms, the state is more interested in replacement or major renovation projects and much less in systemic projects, so.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any more discussion? All right, voting on amendment to restore appropriation of $281,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye. Okay, now I need a motion to approve the amendments for resolution 33-2020.
No,
Well,
Mr. Taylor.
I think you're skipping over, though, aren't
Yeah,
we?
Mardella?
Mardella.
Right.
Mardella?
Yeah, we haven't
Okay, I don't have
addressed
that, but
that.
we can discuss it.
I'll let Dr. Hanlon do that. I would just note on that if you decide to restore that money, we need to make sure that it was actually, that it's restorable, let me put it that way, that we're, not getting ourselves crossways on the
Dr. Hanlon?
state code.
So the document that I've quickly looked at that you were reviewing is a summary document of project funds. It is not the capital improvement plan that was submitted to the council.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing
Okay.
for or against it, I'm just simply saying we got to make sure we're straight in terms of what
Sure.
the state law says.
So if you want to talk project specifics, the request for this year was for 2.5 million. That's primarily to get us through schematic design and have the project ready to bid. The overall cost share split currently would be approximately 35.2 million to the county and 36.5 million to the state. As always, it's subject to change in case our cost share formula were to change from the state and/or we have any potential escalation charges. I'm sure you are aware that things are very volatile in the market at this point in time. And this was based on that feasibility study. So we'll be reanalyzing the overall budget as part of our FY 2022, which starts in July, capital improvement program. Regardless, the 2.5 would remain in effect to get through design. And that's for option 3, which is a major renovation and addition project at Mardella High and Middle.
So what is the total figure for Mardella that needs to be restored?
Our request is for 2.5 million.
2.5 million.
At one time, the executive did say if we could split it up, how would the split up happen? And we responded to that. If you need to know those numbers, I can give them to you.
Any more discussion?
So with Mardella, with the renovation, it's not only making it a larger capacity, but this is also adding programs to the school. More AP classes.
It's not about the program. Obviously, with more space, you may have more ability to do that, but it is a major renovation and addition.
I just want everyone to be aware that they're going to be offering more with more space.
What I would like to ask.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes, if we were to make this adjustment, keep in mind, my concern might be that this would begin the wheels rolling, and this 2.5 on 2021 is going to commit us to another 6 million in 22, 8.5 in 23, 9 in 24, 8.98 in 25. And I don't know if you have any perspective from the Board of Education, because you're no different than we are in trying to make sure that these type of projects are sustainable, and whether or not the county's $35.3 million over this next 5 years, whether you recognize that as a sustainable project.
So I'll jump in and explain that when these costs were put together, we were forward-thinking in escalating the base construction numbers so that it has mapped out over the multiple fiscal years. Obviously, once something is locked in, we have to do the best we can to keep everything within budget. What I can't sit here and guarantee is that the state's going to map out just as it says here within this document as well, because that's a fluid process. Like I spoke earlier, they tend to make changes to cost share formulas. They tend to make changes to how they determine eligible construction square footage. So, you know, these are always put together with the best amount of information we have at the time when we are putting those together. We were pleased to get planning approval. That is an acknowledgement of the state that it is a viable project moving forward, but just like anybody, they're going to caveat how they allocate the money for that is going to be contingent upon their capital funding as well.
If the county were to commit to 2.5 million in '21, I'm guessing that that isn't something that can stop. All the work that would be done at that expense would immediately demand that the process continue forward next year and the year after. It's not just something for studies that could be used 2 years later or 3 years later.
That's correct. This would be, you know, this would be getting full speed ahead on design for option 3, which was the major renovation and addition.
Right. I don't think the original intention on the part of the administration had anything to do with COVID-19, because this project was dropped in December of 2019 before anyone knew what COVID-19 was. In retrospect, I think it might lend itself for the council to be somewhat maybe conservative in our evaluations as to how far we think. We're working in somewhat of a vacuum. Beaver Run is an existing project that we recognize. Mardella, this council is sort of working in a vacuum as to what real funding we have for the year after next, let alone, you know, 21. And believe me, there are a lot of great people in Mardella. They do a lot of good stuff. The last time we contributed over maintenance of effort, or actually one time only, it was because the Mardella community came to this council and said we needed more money. And at the time we made that contribution. I just want to make sure that the county does not get so far out ahead of itself with absolutely having no idea where we're going next month, let alone next year. I would be concerned if we made a $2.5 million commitment right now that we have no idea about sustainability. And I say that because we don't have any information long-term from the executive branch,
Right.
which is kind of like how we have to operate, because we're going to be in a fishbowl if we don't get that information.
But with that said, Mr.
McCain?
No, I appreciate that concern, and I've said this before, I mean, this project's not going away. And I mean, that's what the bond market's for. I mean, that's why we go out and borrow the money and spread it over time, you know, to make that affordable. And it's only going to cost us more money the more we continue to kick this project down the road. So, I mean, I'd like to make an amendment that we restore the 2.5 million as we did on the others, you know, via bond proceeds or other new debt.
Okay, Mr. McCain made a motion to restore $2.5 million to the Mardella Middle and High School project. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Now, do we have discussion?
If you look on the IAC's commitment plan, you mainly see Montgomery County, Baltimore County, and if we don't get on that list, Mardella's just it's gonna fall to the bottom.
And keep in mind, something we always seem to forget, this is considered a planning document, and it is a planning document. It doesn't mean we're going to go out and spend this money next month. So a lot can happen between now. It's just a plan that we'd like to move forward with this commitment, and I'm certain that the Board of Education and the council would recognize maybe in September or October that might not work, but I agree with Councilman McCain when he says, let's put it in there. Let's see if we can't move this ball forward, and we have time, because it's an entire year, at least till December of next year is when the bonding should prove, you know, whether we would see how that comes to fruition.
So are you in favor of the motion?
Was that complicated?
It was.
That was a long-winded yes.
Well, just to clarify, Mr. Hannon, these funds, if they were to be approved, would be accessible by December of this year.
It would have to be in the operating budget, I understand, but
Okay.
it would be in the operating budget. But I think that the Board of Education would be willing to work with the county to make sure that before those funds were expended, that we knew we had long-term sustainability. Am I correct?
Yes, I understand.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, though, because we will have to make that amendment in the budget. Mrs. Hurley, correct?
Yes, there's language proposed by Mr.
Thank you.
Taylor.
Okay, we have a
Thanks for the
motion.
clarification.
Could I just ask for clarification? You said the
Mr. Taylor.
operating budget just now. Did you mean the capital budget
I think as I understand it, the first year commitment in the CIP obligates us to have that same commit within the within the
Capital.
yes, within the capital
Yeah,
budget.
yeah, it would be the capital budget, yeah.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that, yeah, we're clear on that, yeah.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Mardella? All right, I have a motion, a second, to amend restoring the funds of $2.5 million for Mardella Middle and High School. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Chair votes aye, that motion moves. Ms. Hurley, is this a proposed amendment for the Public Works?
For Public Works, I'm sorry, I'm not following.
I've got it in front of me in the amount of $2 million.
I think
It was in our brief.
If you're looking at the proposed amendments to the CIP that was prepared and typed up,
Yeah.
there's only two more on there, and that addresses the prior year appropriations, and one of them is for the Public Works Roads West Side Collector Phase 3 project,
Yes.
and the other was for the Beaver Run prior year appropriation of the $7 million.
Which we already voted on.
Well, those are corrections, though, aren't they, Laura? In other words, that reflects money that was to
Thank
be
you.
borrowed this year for those two projects, but has not been. So essentially, when you look at it as a prior appropriation, it essentially is fictitious because the money was never borrowed, it doesn't exist, as we've just been discussing in terms of
So we
Beaver
don't have to
Run.
vote on this.
Well, if you want to make the changes so that it's accurate, so that the numbers are accurate for the prior appropriations for those two projects, West Side, the Collector Road, that was $2 million, that's not been borrowed. So when you look at, extend over to the right on the CIP plan and see the prior appropriations and it says $2 million, it ain't there. You know, so to me, you want to clear that up so that in the future you don't look at it and think, well, gee, we've appropriated and got $2 million, because we don't.
So we're going to clear that up with an
And the
amendment?
same situation we've been talking about with Beaver Run.
Does anyone want to make an amendment? No amendment?
If you want to leave it that way, fine, but I mean.
I'll make an amendment for discussion, make amendment that we approve the West Side Collector Phase 3, $2 million. That's what we're referring to, correct?
No, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
I can't hear you. Can you
Sorry.
bring that mic up?
Making a motion to, for the West Side Collector Phase 3 in the amount of $2 million. It's referenced as Public Works Department 50.
So that's a motion for $2 million to be restored?
Yes.
Do we have
Well,
a second?
Well, we can't restore it.
Yeah, I don't think we can restore that, because
Oh, you're
number
right, yeah.
one, it's not an education item.
Okay, so Bob, you're
Okay,
suggesting that
that's right.
because it was stated as old money which doesn't exist, we're obligated to actually cut that amount?
Well, what I'm saying is for your document to reflect accurately the amount of money that we've appropriated and gotten,
You're right.
it's not there. So, I
Okay,
mean,
all right,
it's-
I'm going to
yeah.
reverse my amendment.
Okay.
I'm easy to get along with. Then we need to strike the $2 million on the West Side Collector Phase because it was established as old money, which does not exist.
That's correct.
And we can't pass the document with that in there, so that's my motion.
And-
Okay. That doesn't need to be voted on right now, does it?
Well,
It's
yeah,
gonna be an
because
amendment, yes.
we're adopting the CIP. I mean, if we're going to
But
do
let
it,
me-
we're going to do it.
To jump ahead a little bit, but if we do that, can we have it in the CIP plan for next year?
Well,
To
if,
recapture it?
that of course
That's
will
not-
be up to the county exec because
Right.
he proposes the plan.
So that's where I was making a mistake, though. I was trying to restore it, but we can't do that. We can do that with the Board of Education, we can't do that with
But they
Public
could
Works.
they could come back to us with a,
Oh, sure, yeah.
yeah, they can always
They can
come back
request it
to
from
us and try to
contingency.
Yeah.
clean this up.
Okay.
And, but by the same token, while we're at it, well, go ahead and do your vote because I'll
Yeah,
talk about it.
that's my
next time.
motion.
Yeah.
All right,
Everybody
do you-
understand it?
What's that?
Does everybody understand it?
Yeah.
So are we voting now on all the amendments?
No. Was there a second on my?
No, there was not.
Got a second?
No, there's.
Oh, there was a second, but I can't hear you, but thank you.
It's all right.
All right, any discussion?
What are we voting on? Restoring it?
No, I'm sorry, Ernie, I made it very confusing. No, what we realized was that it's stated in the CIP as old money, which doesn't exist, so we have to delete it from the CIP. It's a 2 million. It's unfortunate, but it's 2 million, so 2 million we have to delete.
And it's just the prior year allocation.
Yeah.
So we're voting on deleting the 2 million. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye.
Now, the same situation exists with regard to the 7 million of bond money for Beaver Run that was not borrowed, which we've talked about at some length, a few minutes ago. That it's going to have to be covered some way, but it's not going to be.
Restore that, so.
No,
I know what he's saying, but.
That money is, that old money is still there. That 6.4
Right.
is still there.
That should be
We're going to
there.
leave that alone.
Right.
'Cause that really is there. That's residual bonds that is still there, Bob.
We've crossed that path.
Well, the only problem with that logic, though, is that the $7 million was never borrowed. It doesn't, in other words, it doesn't exist.
Well, we realize that, but
So,
that's.
so that the numbers essentially are false. Now, if they decide to spend the 6.4 million of residual bond money in place of the 7 million, it's a little bit short, but nevertheless, it's still 6.4. But that wouldn't be borrowed money. And we don't know what they're going to do with the 6.4 million, because they haven't told us.
Well, they have.
So-
They've committed it in fiscal year 21. They've committed the 6.4 as old money. And as residual bonds, as I understand it, it's old money.
And if they spend it that way, then it's not available for what was appropriated for this year and not borrowed. So we're $7 million inaccurate.
I don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
I look at it as that there should be $6.4 million, give or take, in old money available. And we just restored 7 million of new dollars. Now, how they ended up, how they combined that to get to, because at the end of the day, we're trying to get to $14 million by the end of the year. And that theoretically gets us to $14 million, or 13.5 to 14 by the end of the year. Theoretically. I mean, they're gonna have to go to the bond market to make that happen, because they gotta get 7 million of new money, which we just, quote, restored in the plan.
Right.
So.
And Bob, as of July 1st, that 6.4 would be old money, and it would be available.
Well, it's already old money.
I understand.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
So
yeah,
they can-
suit
All right.
yourself. It's
Now
not
they,
gonna-
now they can figure it out.
who's on
Okay,
first?
we need to move on, guys. It's
It's
gonna
not
be a long
going to break the
night.
bank, I can tell you, but it does indicate an inaccuracy in the money amount.
Can we move on? Is there any other recommendations for amendments to the CIP?
Yeah, there is, Mr. Dodd, and I would suggest, and I've printed them out, and Laura has circulated them, to address all of this, some additional whereas clauses at the start. Basically, they say that, this CIP is being adopted for the capital budget for this coming fiscal year, 2021. It points out that under the educational article of the Maryland Code, that we can make these restorations, and that they were not included by the county executive. There is a optional paragraph that if you weren't going to make the restoration, the state code requires you explain why you're not. Obviously, you've made the restorations, so you don't have to explain that. That paragraph, that whereas paragraph, which is the last one on the list, would essentially go by the boards. You don't need to consider it. And then down under the heading declaration, this gets into what you have restored. And it mentions the $281,000 for the West Side Intermediate School roof. It's written right now to address just $500,000 for the Beaver Run School, so it does not reflect the motion that was made by Mr. Cannon and passed in regard to the $7 million of new bond money. It would have to be revised, the wording to do that. It does not also include the money for Mardella, so it would have to be revised to include that.
Well, do we have
And
to
if
do
you-
it,
if
do we have
you
to do
want-
this exercise? 'Cause
And if you want to let us make the wording, we can do it. Laura and I could do that. It's pretty simple wording. We know what the motions are.
Right. We've already made the motions and
Right.
approved them,
Yeah.
so.
So you're just asking
I think it
to
needs to be stated
put
clearly.
new wording in there.
Yeah, I think it needs to be stated clearly what you're restoring. It needs to be stated in the actual resolution. So there's no question about it. Somebody picks up the resolution and reads what the CIP is and what was done, compares it to a document, they see what you've done. And it's, as I say, it's nothing extraordinary, but it would take a little modification of the declaration language because of the way it's been changed tonight.
Well, everyone should have these provisions in front of them for the prefatory and the declaration.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on that?
You already have.
I thought we voted on it, but he wants to add.
Well, it would
He
be
just gotta
it would
change
be
the
an
language.
actual amendment of language in the resolution itself.
Well, can we
To
can we
incorporate.
vote to reflect the this language to reflect the changes, the revisions that we made to the CIP?
Yeah, and then we'd throw that in there and would have it done.
Can we do that as we're voting on all the amendments?
Yeah, it's essentially just to change the language in the resolution itself is what we're talking about now. To
All right.
incorporate what you've done and to spell out at the start the fact that the code lets you make these restorations for the Board of Education.
All right, I need a motion on resolution number 33-2020 as amended to include the provisions that Mr. Taylor spoke about.
So moved.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion?
Mr. Taylor, is that okay to pass this
Yeah, I think we're okay
without
on
the
that.
specific language?
Yeah, when you've got it in front of you, it needs to be
Should have it in front of
revised
us.
with the two items regarding Mardella and Beaver Run.
All right.
To reflect your motions tonight.
Mr. President, can I
Yes, ma'am.
make the suggestion just for the record to read the whereas paragraphs?
I'll read the first three. Entertain a motion to amend Resolution 33-2020 so that the, adding after the first two paragraphs of the prefatory that it states, whereas subsection 704H of the Wicomico County Charter provides that the portion of the capital program that must be paid in fiscal year 2021, the next fiscal year, shall be the capital budget, and that said capital budget shall be included in the expense budget for fiscal year 2021, the next fiscal year, which section 705 of the charter also requires to be included in the county's expense budget. And whereas the Title V Financing of Education article of the Maryland Code pertaining to elementary and secondary education authorizes the county council to restore any denial or reduction made by the county executive in fiscal year 2021 budget of the Wicomico County Board of Education. And whereas in the fiscal year 2021 portion of the proposed capital program, the county executive has denied funding for an item in the capital budget that is requested by the Wicomico County Board of Education, reduce the funding that it has requested for another such item in the county's fiscal year 2021 capital budget. And Mr. Taylor, you're going to have to help me on this last one. Whereas, as required by subsection 5-107A of the education article, the council hereby indicates that it does not hereby restore in the
No, that's the one you can omit because
We can
you've
omit that.
restored them.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, you've
All right.
restored them.
All right.
As my own worst critic.
Okay, all right.
And just one
I understand.
one
All right.
item,
Okay.
my own worst critic in that last whereas you read,
The first, yeah.
where it says funding for an item, that would be funding for two items because we now have Mardella.
Okay.
All right, so noted. So it's the three whereases as noted. That's my motion.
Okay,
You say.
and the declaration?
Well,
Do we
right
need to
now,
read
let's just
that?
take, right now, let's take that one.
Okay.
Is it two or
Second.
three?
You still have the motion and a second. Does that,
There's three whereases. Yeah, he's
does
got
that
it.
meet your approval, Ms. Hurley?
It's three items, right? Not two.
Right, three
Three.
items, right.
Okay.
That would meet the approval for the motion that he just made.
Right.
But I do
For
think you
reading
need
it.
to address the declaration
Right.
as well.
Yeah. I just
Do
wanna-
that separately or with this?
You could do it separately.
Okay. All right, you got a motion and a second to approve resolution number 33-2020 as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye. Passes unanimously. Okay. Now we have the declaration. Can someone read that?
Well, they're, as typed, as presented, they're inaccurate with the exception of number 1, the one that pertains to West Side Intermediate. Number 2, which pertains to Beaver Run, would be changed to reflect Mr. Cannon's motion that you passed.
7.
The $7 million of new bond money for that. And then there would be a new item 3 regarding Mardella, which would be $2.5 million new bond money. So that would essentially be the 3 items.
Okay, for that declaration, do you have a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second.
Mr. McCain, why don't you read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. To
Thank
include in FY 2021, added by restoration pursuant to Section 5-102C3 of the Education Article of the Maryland Code, the following items which the Wicomico County Board of Education has requested in the county's FY 2021 capital budget, but the county executive has failed to include in that portion of the capital program that he has proposed. 1, the entire amount, $281,000, requested for roof replacement at the West Side Intermediate School to be provided from bond proceeds, parentheses, new money, or other new debt. 2, the amount, $7 million, by which the county executive reduced this request for the county's portion of the funding for replacement of Beaver Run Elementary School to be provided from bond proceeds, parentheses, new money, or other new debt. And I'm not sure about if we need this last sentence, but I'll read it. It is noted that a substantial portion of the sum that the county executive has included in the capital program for this funding in FY 2021, specifically $6,419,312, may not be available from the source indicated.
Do we need that last sentence?
No, I don't think so.
Right, I think we can strike that last sentence.
Strike it.
And I can, we don't have a 3, but I can try to read one. We need a third one. I'll make a stab at it.
Okay.
So number 3, the amount of $2.5 million requested for Mardella restoration renovation project to be restored via from bond proceeds, parentheses, new money, or other new debt.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye. Okay.
That was easy.
That was easy.
So now you want to just vote on the bill, or the resolution as amended?
On 33-2020.
Yes.
All right, we're going to vote on this bill as amended for resolution number 33-2020. Need a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye. Resolution number 33-2020 as amended passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Ms. Hurley.
Next on the agenda is resolution number 34, 2020. This is approving an increase in the transfer station permit in-county fee, also known as the household permit fee, and the tipping fee for Newland Park landfill, tipping fee per ton, proposed by the county executive. And I believe Mr. Mark Whitelock, Deputy Director of Public Works, is here to answer any questions.
Okay. Mr. Whitelock, could you have a seat, bring the mic to you, and say your name and your department?
Mark Whitelock, Deputy Director of Public Works, Wicomico County.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to approve resolution number 34-2020 and a second.
So moved.
Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Holloway.
Mark, what is the tipping fees of our neighboring counties?
Somerset's at 66, Worcester's at 70, Dorchester's at 62, and Delaware's at 85.
Okay, so
they're lowest.
We're pretty much the lowest in the area. How about the fees for permitting?
The only one tied with us currently is Somerset, and that's for one, but they have a $25 kicker for the second.
Have a what now? I'm sorry.
They have a 25. They're at 60, the same as we are, but they have a $25 kicker for the second sticker.
Okay, all right. Okay. What is the reserves at the landfill?
Right now, it's, I believe, a little over 4 million unreserved. second, I'll tell you.
I thought it was around seven.
7,611,000.
I know one of the statements when we were talking earlier, you said that, you know, you thought that our tipping fee ought to be increased because we were getting people coming into the county.
Yes.
From other counties.
Yes.
Because we were less expensive. Yeah, I agree with that. But I don't agree with the increase in the permitting fee. And I'll tell you why. And I'd like to make an amendment to this. But first, every year that we raise these fees, and we haven't raised them in a while, but we see an increase in trash along the roads. And being from the rural area, I see a lot of it. And here this year, we haven't been able to clean up the sides of the roads because we haven't been able to get the prisoners on the road, you know, due to the COVID. So I'd like to make an amendment that we keep the tipping fee at 60 and then go ahead with a recommendation of 65 per ton.
I guess my only question to that, do you really think for $5, the people that are trashing our roads are going to change their habits?
Well,
You
I
know.
don't know. You know, it's a question, but I know that when we started this back, I guess it was in the early 90s, the tipping fee was $25, something like that. And the higher it goes, the less people you have buying permits. So I think it would help. Not only that, we've talked about the issue of income this year with the COVID-19, so people are going to have less money to spend. So I think that would be a wise move to keep it at 60. So I'll make that amendment.
Can I ask a question? Mr. Whitelock, in the other counties, their permit fee and tipping fee, are they the same or they're different?
No, they're similar, but they're not the same.
I mean, as far as, like, what Joe's proposing is that our sticker stay the
Yes,
same.
there are variances in household permits versus tonnage tipping fees on the scale.
From other counties?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So I'd make that amendment to
Got a motion to make amendment as,
leave the sticker fee at 60, and I don't have to amend to make the tipping fee higher because it's already in the budget. So.
do we have a second?
Correct?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
How do you feel about that, Mr. Whitelock?
The household permits are actually a small part of what we do, so.
Small part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we sell,
It's not going to have a big effect on that.
we sell 8,100 a year.
All right, any
How-
more discussion?
Just for clarity again, how much did you say that would impact the $5 change? What would that,
For,
if just
Sticker.
keeping it at,
well, we go from 60 to 65. It was always based that the $60 was based on the same tipping fee that the average household of 4 people would create a ton of trash per year.
so what's the difference in the income if this amendment goes forward?
Is that 40,000?
No, 8,100
I'm doing it in my head.
times it by 5, and that's what
40,000,
the
right?
loss would be.
Right.
It won't be a loss because we have.
Yeah, it's not there, so. Unrealized
About
funds.
40,000.
Any more discussion? All right, got a motion and a second.
Well, we got to
Sir.
vote, are we voting on the amendment first? Yeah, vote on
Yes, we're going to vote on his amendment. We got a motion and a second for Mr. Holloway's amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye.
Opposed.
Opposed?
Do you, who opposes? Got,
Over here.
got 3 ayes over here.
Are you smiling, Joe? I can tell. Opposed.
I didn't catch yours.
Oh, I'm for it.
What's that?
I'm for his amendment.
You're for it. All right, so it's 4-3. Mr. Cannon, Mr. Holloway, and Mr. McCain oppose the
No,
amendment.
I didn't oppose the amendment.
Mr. Hastings, sorry.
Oppose your own
Mr.
amendment.
Hastings, Mr. Cannon, Mr.
Although
McCain.
I have done that before.
You have? Well, that's funny. All right, thank you. Okay, now I need a motion to approve resolution number 34-2020 as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Got a second. Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye. So the resolution passes as amended. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Hurley?
Next, we have resolution number 35, 2020, This is approving a right-of-way agreement for Delmarva Power and Light Company. And we have Mr. Steve Miller here, Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism, if there are any questions.
All right, need a motion to approve resolution number 35-2020.
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Davis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who made the second? Who made the second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cannon. Any discussion?
I was distracted there for a minute, Mr. Dodd, but I do have something to comment on that,
On what?
on this easement resolution that I think is before the council right now.
What resolution?
Aren't we voting on Resolution 35-2020 right away?
We're going to do a discussion first.
Oh,
We're
okay. I'm
discussing
sorry.
Let's let
first.
Mr. Miller actually address it.
Yeah, I'm
first.
sorry.
Did I say the
I
wrong
was
resolution?
distracted here for a
No,
minute.
no.
Okay.
Pardon me.
All right, Mr. Miller, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. Steve Miller, Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism for the county. The program that we're talking about is through Delmarva Power, and the intent is to increase the footprint for electric vehicle charging stations. So they've identified, they're looking for places with 24/7 access. So they've identified a few places, but the one that we're talking about today is at the Civic Center, where we would dedicate 4 spots in the back corner lot. It would come at no cost to the county. They would install the signage, they would install the stations. It would just be a convenience for folks that have electric vehicles. And the agreement's a right-of-way agreement that's been vetted by Mr. Wilbur. And so we're just looking for that approval to move forward.
Is there a fee for the charging stations?
As far as for the user, I don't believe so. I'm not 100% sure. I know there's no fees for the county to have
So
it.
Delmarva Power is giving away free electric?
I'd have to double check on that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I don't use them. I don't know. I see them like Warwick has one.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
I guess so.
Mr. Holloway?
I guess I'm wondering, why, whether it's free or not, why the county's supplying property for, are we going to do another corner for a Wawa at some point in time so people can get gas? I just don't I don't get the point of this, why the county's supplying this property. If Delmarva Power wants to give away free electricity, that's fine, but I don't understand why the county's supplying property for this. If they wanted to go out and rent property off of a parking lot at a shopping center, I guess that would be okay, or if the shopping center wanted to donate it.
Right.
But I remember a few years ago when Mr. Mackey's was here, we expanded the parking for events, and I know that we're at a standstill for events right now, unfortunately, but one of the big problems was then is we didn't have enough parking space, so now we're trying to give up some parking so people can get possibly free electricity. We're not supplying places where people can get free gasoline. I guess that's what I'm saying. So I have a problem with this.
So if we have a sold-out concert, would those 4 parking spaces not be available?
We would not police that especially in the COVID days here. If we have a sold-out concert or any event, our focus would be on running the event. So that's not something we would
So we could
block
park there
off.
anyway?
Yeah, we would.
So that wouldn't be an issue?
Unless somebody was using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more of for those who have electric vehicles, and it's more of a convenience thing.
It is. And they looked at location, again, they looked at 24/7 access to a facility, and so they inquired about the Civic Center. So it'd be 4 spaces is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. Hastings?
It'd probably be, in the future, I guess it'd be better if we actually had more spaces. If we really want folks to come from out of town to go to a show, then this is and many of them are going to be coming from cities, and they might have a long ride. They might be able to charge while they're at the concert. So I think in the future, this is certainly not space that we're using, so I'm actually excited to see this. This is actually really nice, and
Should we
hopefully
be buying gas for people that come from a long ways away?
Yeah, I know I have a big debate on this, but it's kind of apples and oranges because, electric vehicles have such a short life in terms of you have to have more availability of places to charge when they're parked, just because, they don't have the range of
That's
gas.
people's choice when they buy one, I guess.
Right, but you need to encourage people to to use electric vehicles. That's why you need more charging stations. Right, that's what the Civic Center is trying to do.
Well, I know there's several at the Civic Center, not the Civic Center, at the mall, by
Right.
Boscov's, and I rarely see anybody using those, but occasionally I'll see a car there. But it's not like they're full all the time.
So do we want to vote on this before we find out whether DP&L is charging for it, or is that?
I don't think it doesn't impact our ability, right? It's not extra money coming into us. It doesn't really matter. We're providing a public good, a public service, I would think. And I think, I would imagine that we're going to continue to see, in 10 years, we might be seeing 90% electric vehicles and 10%.
Mr. Miller, do you know if DP&L is charging for the stations?
I don't. I'm trying to glance here at the agreement. I don't know if they're charging the user. That's something I can circle back on.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that they would be just giving
Right.
electricity for free.
Yeah, it may be a metered situation. I need to double check that.
Why would you suggest that the council create this easement and allow them to have this as opposed to maybe leasing the property to them, I'm sorry?
I think for some of the reasons stated, it's, more and more people are using electric vehicles. I think it's just an added feature to bring people out to the Civic Center to create awareness, and it's a public space. And I think the downside is 4 spots in the back corner, which are needed at various times for major events, but in those major events, we wouldn't set those aside. So I don't see us losing anything.
There's 4 charging stations at the north end of the mall. Tesla has them up there. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's for their clients to pay to charge the cars. They're going from here to New York, whatever. Due to the fact that, the Civic Center itself really is in need of as much revenue as possible, I think this might be a good revenue stream. Right now, it's in its infancy, and everybody's trying to do what they can to see the economy move forward and to go into electric as opposed to gas. But should we have a clause in there where maybe it's a 5-year agreement, acknowledging the fact that after such, that the county has the right to then consider leasing the property? I believe it's a little premature to vote on this now. I think it should go into work sessions. We have time to discuss the details.
You want to table this?
Mr. Miller, what would you think as far as trying to limit it so that we don't want to give away the golden goose forever?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we could explore those options if there's opportunities for revenue. Certainly, we could explore that. And I don't sense this is something that we think could be a benefit, but it's not a rush. So I think if we wanted to revisit that, we could do that.
And I recognize the fact that it's really nice to have that, and it's a really good plus. But maybe balance it. Does the delay hurt you at all?
No, I don't believe so.
Entertain a motion to postpone, Mrs. Hurley, Resolution 35-2020 until the next.
Are we postponing it or tabling it?
For 2 weeks. Postponement for 2 weeks.
Postponing it for 2 weeks. Are you asking for a work session or to vote on it then?
Wow, that's a really good question.
I think a work session would be appropriate.
On a postponement, is it required a date? No, it does not. So
You should have a date in there, yes.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to postpone it for a month, and then it'll give us a little leeway.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Oh. No, we don't typically have comments during this, but I appreciate it. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Chair votes aye.
Yeah, Mr. Dodd,
Thank you. We'll set you up in about a month.
Can I make a general suggestion in terms of this postponement? And that is the same suggestion I made several months ago when we did the DP&L easement off of Walston Switch Road. And that is that we put in some standard protections for the county. I've provided a document that has that, and it's easily done. I don't know why these don't come over with those protections in them, but just like Walston Switch, it didn't. And I think it should be done that way. This is a little different than a right-of-way, where you just go across somebody's property. This is going to be an operation, business operation, dealing, I don't know whether they're going to be customers.
Okay, you can send those recommendations to us.
I mean, I can do it, or Paul Wilbrook, or anybody can do it. Probably DP&L's council can do it.
All right, Ms. Hurley?
Next on the agenda is Resolution Number 36, 2020, confirming the appointment of a Director of Administration to be effective July 1st, 2020. And you'll notice that there is a blank line in the resolution for the name to be inserted. So just make a note that you'll have to make that amendment to the
That's correct.
resolution.
Right, need a motion to approve resolution number 36-2020 and a second.
moved.
Need a motion and a second.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Mr. John Pasoda is the candidate, and he's who we'll be voting on, and we'll also make an amendment for his name to be included in this resolution. I spoke with him today, and he really wanted to be here to show the county executive and the county council that he is really interested in getting the job. He also said that his current employer is well aware of it, and they support him. So any discussion? Any discussion?
He's not here,
Yeah, he is not here. He had something to do tonight. And that's one of the reasons I talked to him this way. Something came up with his current position, and it was important for him to be there. And that's why he said that he really wanted to be here, but he couldn't be here.
Entertain a motion to amend Resolution 36-2020 to include Mr. John Pasoda's name where there are blanks in reference to the Director of Administration.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, need a motion to accept resolution number. We do have a motion, so we're voting on the amendment at this time.
No, we just did.
Just did.
What's
We
that?
just did.
We just, okay, so we're voting on the resolution as amended.
Yeah.
Got it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. So the resolution passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Pasoda.
Mr. President, that's all I have for now.
Okay. Now we have Mr. Taylor up
Yes.
next.
Yeah, this would be, gonna have to get my computer going here.
All right. Mr. Taylor,
Yeah, this is,
legislative bill
no, okay. Yeah, this is
2020.
Legislative Bill 2020-04, the annual budget and appropriation bill of Wicomico County, Maryland, to adopt the county operating and capital budget consisting of the general fund revenue and expense budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021, the capital improvement plan CIP for 2021-2025, and to and to appropriate funds for all expenditures for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, and ending June 30, 2021, as hereinafter indicated. It's also indicated that the county executive would be here, and I don't see him.
Mr. Dodd, actually, I'd like to make an amendment to this, but I don't know if we need to introduce it first before I make the amendment, or can I make the amendment now?
Let's introduce this first and then do the amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have pointed out, this is second reading.
The second reading, it is. We're going to be voting on this tonight, or should be. All right, you have a motion?
Motion to
So-
approve. Motion to approve.
Resolution 2020-04. You got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
McCain.
Yep, I'd like to make a motion to substitute the following proposed amendments to the operating budget portion of this bill, which were discussed at budget recap session and subsequent emails, which would address, Ms. Hurley has a handout here in front of
Yes.
us, which would address items 1 through 18 and 22. Because that's essentially the items that directly involve the reductions and additions that we have discussed. And for the record, I'll read and summarize that, and actually, also for convenience, I printed out the amendment.
You got it. Did we make a vote on that already?
Well, there's a I think Mr. McCain's
I've been-
made a motion. for
Yeah,
an
I'm still,
amendment.
yeah,
He's still reading his amendment.
We don't know what the amendment is yet.
right, I'm still, yeah.
I heard 1 through 18.
Yeah, so just to read it into the record, the amendment that I'm proposing, making the motion to propose would be to regarding the vacant positions would be eliminating the assistant internal auditor and eliminating the executive budget for the budget officer / chief financial officer. The remaining vacant positions would all remain in the budget. The other reduction would be the director of administration salary, but that's there's a footnote at the bottom that reflects the fact that the $22,866 that's being reduced is to account for the fact that as we just appointed another administration director, there could be an overlap for some period. If there is, that additional dollars would have to go toward that. The other items in the executive budget would remain in the budget. The only other item that would be reduced in the executive budget would be the contractual services for $25,000. The airport dollars would be reduced in this amendment, as we have discussed before, with a footnote to that as well. The reason for that reduction is we're assuming that the CARES Act funds will be available from the FAA, and so that will not be needed. We can reallocate that. And then the new auto leases, which I think the thought process there, that's being deferred anyhow, pushed out, that would also be reduced. So that would be the COLA, the 5% as proposed, that would remain in the budget. So the total reductions would be $1,057,912. The recommended additions would be the prosecutors and investigators in the state's attorney's office at $265,000, with the associated Social Security of $20,273. Also recommend short transit at Tri-County at $200,000 of those reductions are provided to short transit. I'm not sure why they weren't in the budget, or they're in the budget, but we don't pay our share. We're $200,000 short. We're actually going to be $400,000 short this year, but they'll take $200,000. Also, there's the Director of Administration overlap at $22,866. And then Meals on Wheels with MAC, recommend that $25,000 be added to Meals on Wheels, and then $500,000 for roads maintenance and blacktop. That's total additions of $1,033,139. So that's leaves $24,773 to go into contingency. So I make that motion to amend those items, and that would be, that basically covers, from a discussion standpoint, items 1 through 18 and 22. And then we could just come back to because I think it's easier for us to come back to deal with the capital part of this, just like we kind of did earlier.
So you're wanting to restore the COLA from 3 to 5, is that correct?
Well, it's not restored, it's already in the budget for 5%.
Is that a motion, Mr. McCain?
Yes, that's a motion.
And you're wanting to restore the.
Well, can we get the second first, then we can discuss it?
Yeah, waiting on a second. Do we have
I'll
a second?
second that. Okay.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Hastings makes the second. Any discussion?
Mr. McCain, I appreciate what you have here, but I've had about 1 minute to look at this. I'm more prepared, as was prepared for the entire council, to go through the process of each individual cut as we had reviewed in the last meeting. I'm a little more confused in trying to follow your scenario, honestly. I appreciate what you've done, but I feel it would be more effective and it would be easier for the public to understand if we went through it item by item, which is what it is, as we did in the last meeting, so that we know exactly what we're doing, exactly what's being cut.
Well, just to address that, I mean, it's actually pretty simplistic. The bulk of our reductions were the vacant positions, which are just normal vacancies for the majority, that's just normal vacancies that an organization the size of Wicomico County has at any given time. So basically, none of those are being cut except for our assistant internal auditor, which that's being reallocated, and the new position that was the executive's office had sought for the budget officer.
Right,
So,
but you're requesting just to do a broad sweep, and, you know, there are some positions I want to correct from our last meeting where I want to restore some of these cuts, or restore some of this funding, but in other areas I don't. So it's going to be more piecemeal for me. I don't want to do a broad swipe and say everything's on the board now, as opposed to what we discussed in line by line at the last meeting.
right, but, line by line, that's, I mean, we'll be here 2 hours.
You know, the
but
Mr. Holloway?
The reason we sat and went through all these budget issues is because of what we're hearing about where we're headed as far as revenues go. And we don't know where we're headed as far as where revenues go. And we're sitting here wanting to restore all this money that we've talked about cutting, and maybe some of it does need to be restored, but just to, like John says, to just broadly put it all back in. I mean, you hear about the state starting to talk about the disparity grant, and they said, well, they can cut 25% of it. Well, they can. The Board of Public Works can. You know, legislatively, they could cut it all. You know, the last recession we went through, they picked us up and made us pay for part of the teacher's pension. They could do that again.
Mr.
We don't know.
Holloway, if you can
Yes.
speak into the microphones.
I've got it.
It's the mass muffles.
Okay. So, you know, I know everybody doesn't agree with what we did, and that's fine. But I was here through that last recession. And this time, we're not talking about laying people off. We're not talking about rifts. We're not talking about decreases in pay. We're talking about giving a raise, which doesn't make everybody happy due to the fact of how low it is. It's not as high as what the county executive put in. But in the next year, this is going to be an easy budget this year compared to what we're going to see next year. What's been going on in our communities across the country is going to probably cost us a lot more than what the COVID-19 issues cost us, or if not more, at least a lot. So, you know, we need to be conservative with this budget, and putting this monies that we've cut into the reserves. We're not cutting the budget at all. We've not cut this $153 million. We're not cutting it. All we're doing is moving the money into the reserves, so at a later point in time, it can be determined where it's needed the most.
But actually, we are cutting quite a bit of money, and
We're
then
cutting departments.
We're
We're not cutting the county budget.
Right, but we are cutting and we are moving into reserves. This amendment is very straightforward, very simple, and it's a proposal that's a positive message to the executive office. It's a positive message to our county employees that are very dedicated, work very hard for this county, and lastly, it's a positive message to our community.
Again, I would still like to go by the list that the staff went to a lot of trouble to prepare for this council and gave it to us at least, I guess, a week ago, and we've had time to review it. Mr. McCain, I'm not quite, you know, I'm not familiar with what you have at all, which you've just presented me right now. So
I agree
that's
with
my
you,
only
Mr.
difference.
Cannon.
I want to have a chance to go through what we've already done and what's been prepared for the council, item by item. And it won't take long.
I think it'd be just as easy to run down the line like we have with the proposal in front of us and vote on each one of them individually. That's just my opinion, but we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? A motion and a second for the amendment, voting on the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those say opposed, say nay.
Opposed.
Nay. How many nays do we have?
3.
I didn't hear. Do a roll call.
Let's do a roll call.
All right, roll call. Ernie Davis.
Aye.
Nicole Acle.
Aye.
Josh Hastings.
Aye.
Joe Holloway.
Nay.
John Cannon.
Nay.
Bill McCain.
Aye.
The president votes nay, so it's 4-3, so the amendment wins. Now, you're gonna have to explain it because it is confusing.
Mr. President, PAC 14 needs just a minute to change over the tape.
Okay, motion to take a break, do we need that? Change the tape, I have to go to the restroom, so we're gonna take 3 to 5 minutes.